it's not being mindful of your money and not respecting it. That stops most people.
Welcome to the House Hacking Success Podcast, where you'll learn the path to free rent and financial freedom through real estate. Featuring your hosts, Brad Labrie and Drew Klingler.
What's up, everybody? It's Brad from House Hacking Success, and today I want to talk to you about my absolute favorite real estate app, which is Landlordy. If you're anything like me, you're an action taker and a doer, which means that administrative work gets in the way of our progress. I am horrible at keeping track of receipts, keeping track of the safety checks I need to do and routine checkups on my properties, and keeping tabs on my tenants and the lease renewals and keeping tabs where my leases are. And Landlordy is an absolute lifesaver for me. With Landlordy, you can manage information about your properties, your tenants, keep contact information and documents easily accessible at your fingertips no matter where you are in the world. If you're a traveler like I am, you can find this information on the beach and get the information to the people that need it. You can track your expenses in seconds, keep them organized, use device camera to add expense receipts in seconds, which is absolutely amazing. Landlordy will remind you on your landlord duties like late rent payments, upcoming lease renewals, or appliance safety checks. Manage your business on the road or from the beach. Keep your rental business and related documents a few touches away, day or night with Landlordy. Start managing your rental business on your iPhone or iPad. Go to landlordy.com/househacking. For 30% off Landlordy Plus, which is absolutely amazing. I personally use it. Go there today for House Hacking Success listeners only.
Until you get your house in order, you don't have the mentality to do it, and you're going to lose. So I think that's what stops most people is it's up here. Because if it was a money thing that stopped us from investing, none of us would ever invest because most of us don't start with money. Is that correct?
That's absolutely
correct. Don't.
Welcome to House Hacking Success. Today we have our first ever second-time guest. Mark, we appreciate you coming on.
No problem, man. I love talking to you guys. This is great.
So before we get into the show, I just want to say that, Mark, I believe you're the most underrated follow on Instagram. You and Rick Jarman. I mean, I wish I could be a bug on the wall every time you two talk. I always learn something, and we really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Rick and I, we talk almost every day on the phone, so we're having a good time. We're having a good time, and you know, we didn't come into this with any preconceived notions as to what we wanted to do with it, but we're both having a ball, and it's fun to be able to share, especially with there's so many young people out there. So yeah, we're having fun.
And you two are genuine people, which is really, really hard to come by. You know, most people have angles. Like you said, you guys didn't come into it with anything. That's the essence of why I think you guys are so important for people to reach out to and follow, because you guys really are just doing it for the love of the game. You know what you're doing. You've been doing it so long. And that's why I say what I say. And anyone that isn't following you or isn't familiar with you, we'll have your link in the bio or in the show notes, and they can follow you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's cool. I'm having fun with it. It's taken on a life of its own.
So for people unfamiliar with you, let's catch them up a little bit about your background, what got you into real estate, and a little bit where you are today.
Okay, Brad. Yeah. Well, the quick and dirty is I've been a contractor all my life. I grew up in the mountains where it's cold. You know, not cold here, but grew up in the mountains where it's cold, learning how to build stuff, putting in fireplaces for the most part, and with that background, I was able to build a decent construction business. Not wonderful. I never scaled well. And then the economy crashed. I mean, there was a lot in between there. This is a real short version because I don't want to bore everybody. But the economy crashed. My wife and I were both in the construction industry. She was in the landscape side. I was in the landscape construction side. And basically, we lost everything. I saw my cars getting taken away. My house was getting close. This was 2008, and no work, nothing even remotely close to giving me a glimmer or even a sliver of hope. And my wife went to Japan to go see her parents with my youngest. I've got 3 boys. And wasn't sure what was really going to happen with that because I wasn't able to get my what together. And anyway, I fast forward. I talked to somebody. They invited me to an investment club meeting, which I am a big proponent of. I'm telling you, if you want to stay motivated, go talk to a bunch of motivated people once or twice a month. It'll get your juices flowing. Met a guy that was flipping mobile homes. I had no money, but I was able to, and that's another whole story, but I was able to purchase a mobile home for $100 through just sheer tenacity, door knocking and begging, and ended up making, I don't remember, $15,000 on that, and ended up losing money on my next few projects, but that was enough to get my wife and I going. She came back, almost divorced me because I spent the last $100 we had on that, and through one way or another, we ended up getting that done. Like I said, lost a little bit on the next few, and then slowly over the next couple of years started making headway. We were making just enough to buy groceries, and ended up looking pretty good. And in 2020, we look pretty good now. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. You guys built a real nice business now, and you talk a lot about that on your page. A lot of the followers of you and us are new first-time investors. Maybe they're just really fascinated with real estate. They haven't jumped in, and they're looking towards house hacking because you mitigate a little bit of the risk. You can live for free. You don't have to get as great of a deal. Talk a little about what it takes to get your house in order before you even begin to invest.
My favorite subject. Yeah. I didn't have my house in order, and here's what I went through because of that. So let me start there. I was so ill prepared to start investing, and granted, you keep in mind that I was a contractor. I had a lot of sales experience before I got into this, so I had a couple of tools in my tool belt to help me through, and I was able to scrape together some money. I mean, honestly, here's the thing. I had so many credit cards that were full tilt when we started, completely maxed out, late, way late, and some angel above sent me a credit card with a $2,500 limit on it during that time. I don't know why. I have no idea, but that's what we used to rehab that trailer. That is really no way to get started in a business. Now, a lot of people have those stories and they make great stories, but they really don't make a great basis for starting a business. So if you're going to start one, you should start with a good foundation, right? A house has a foundation, and then you start building it. So the best way to do it is take those small steps and then just move forward every day. Get your credit squared away. Make sure you've got a job that provides income. Look for your money sources. Try to get financing lined up. There's so many things that you can do to start the process. Know your area, research, listen to guys like you. You guys are young and you guys are doing it. I'm old and I've done it. So there's a lot of value in what I've got to say, but there's a lot of value in what you guys have to say, because that's where most people are starting, right? They're young, they're hungry, they want to do it, but they have no idea how to get there. And you guys are the future. I'm here, I'll keep going with what I'm doing, and I'm glad to provide as much as I can. But you guys are the ones that really, need to get the message out there like you're doing, and people will listen, but that's it. Long answer, but get your house in order, guys. Make sure that if you've got a bunch of stuff hanging over your head, try to clear it up. I mean, you guys know that, right? I mean,
yeah.
I'm assuming absolutely. That's how you guys got started, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is so true, because a lot of people, they go, especially you get out of college or you come into the real world, and you go try to impress a girl and you get a car, and then you go get new clothes and you put it on a credit card, and all this, and you rack up credit card debt and whatever. And then all of a sudden you begin to realize that you got to start planning for the future. And now real estate sounds good, right? Yes. But you still got that car and you still got all this credit card debt, right? And you haven't fixed it. And at some point that's going to come back to bite you if you don't get your house in order. And that's why I appreciate your message.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It's great. It's funny, when I was in college, I only went for a real short time, and then I was asked to leave. That's a good story, but we'll get to that one someday. I remember the first day I showed up to college, there was a table set up there. We didn't have the pop-ups then. They didn't exist. This was back in 1981, 82. There was a table set up, and it was Sears, and they were pushing their credit cards. And it was on campus, and I'm assuming that credit card companies still do that. I don't know. But I got my Sears credit card, and I was so excited. I went out and bought a bunch of tools, because I'm a really bad mechanic, but nonetheless, I like to wrench. And so I went out and bought all new tools and all kinds of stuff. I never made a payment. And that haunted me for years, along with my student loans. So, yeah, it's a slippery slope. And, if you can think about it when you're young, I don't know, maybe you guys have talked to other people about it, young people about it, but that thing where, I'll do it when I get older, that attitude people have that I always had, I'll save, I'll invest, I'll get my credit squared away, I'll stop drinking, and all the things that you talk about doing when you're young that you're still doing. When you're young is the time to start that stuff, guys, because then the habits get set up. And I'm 56, I'll be 57 next month. Holy crap. Anyway, I'll be 57 next month. And I didn't start till I was 47. And just think about what I could have accomplished had I started when I was, in my 20s. It's crazy.
So I talk about this a lot with people, given the fact that, as you progress, right, you're young, you get out of college, you have a few years of, maybe getting a job and all this stuff, and then eventually you get married or you have kids or whatever it is. And a lot of the things that Drew and I do, like house hacking, become a little bit out of reach. When you have two kids, it's a little bit challenging to downsize or move to an apartment and have neighbors, and you got the, the protection element and things of that nature, right? And I tell people all the time, man, like, you're missing your opportunity. You got this opportunity window, right, to sacrifice. You're already probably living in an apartment, right, which most of my friends did, and I did at one point, right? Nothing bad, but you have this opportunity to do the same exact thing, but you get to choose your neighbor. You get to build wealth. You get to save money. You don't have a rent payment or a mortgage payment. You get to sort of live for free, build wealth. And that opportunity window, it'll close real fast. It'll close real fast if you don't get on it.
That's delayed gratification. I mean, if you put off buying the new car, the big house, and all that longer and longer, and work and invest, later in life, that reward is going to be much bigger instead of setting yourself back financially early on in life. When you start to live at capacity, seeing how much I can afford a month, oh, this car can be financed for this much a month, and I can get this house for this much a month, I can afford that. But then what's going into savings? What's being reinvested to create a better life down the road?
Yeah, it's funny. Drew, you bring up a good point. And let me expound on that a little bit, because, when you set up those habits when you're young, I always tell my kids, and my kids I can't remember how old, I know, Drew, you're in your 20s, right?
27.
Yeah, we both are. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my oldest son is 29. And I always tell my kids, if you work and save and build good habits in your 20s and early 30s, and, drive a Corolla, I always tell them, drive a Corolla in your 20s, you can drive a Porsche in your 30s. Not that I want them to do that necessarily, but it's the idea behind it. Yeah. And here's the funny thing. If you live that kind of lifestyle in your 20s, that Porsche, that Ferrari, and don't think I'm not going to get a Porsche, guys. Don't think I'm not. But if you live that lifestyle in your 20s and early 30s, it becomes kind of a mantra for your life. Your lifestyle becomes that, and then those things aren't as important, and it's your goals start shifting. And I think a lot of times people think, okay, I'm going to travel, I'm going to buy this big house, I'm going to get these fancy cars and everything. And those are awesome dreams. I have no problem with that. But the reality of life is, at my age, especially, I've still got a 16-year-old in high school. Our life revolves around going to dinner with friends, going to sporting events for our kids, my kid, and my older boys coming over to dinner. And what we do doesn't require having all of those things. The things that give us true joy, the real joy in life, don't cost a lot of money. Now, we travel, and you guys know my lifestyle. I have a fun lifestyle. I do a lot of fun things, and I have a lot of fun things, but that's not the most important thing. So what was it? There was a book I read a few years, maybe it was The Millionaire Next Door. Do you guys recall that book?
Yep.
And isn't he the one that talks about what people really actually do with their money when they have money?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's where I'm kind of coming from, and that hit me then, but it hits me more now. And I can't imagine in a couple of years when I've got grandkids, it's even going to be more. We still go to Japan, still go to Hawaii a lot, but you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Set up those habits now, and the things that bring you true joy, you'll start doing now. So
it was kind of interesting. Like, that book came out in 96 and Rich Dad Poor Dad came out in 97, and they were back to back the two best-selling books of basically the 90s. And I tell people all the time, they're definitely contradicting stories, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like the ways of life.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've spent my whole life going right in the middle between books like that or ideas like that. And like you talked about, drive a Corolla or drive a cash car in your 20s, right? So that you can drive the Porsche in your 30s, that mindset. And that's what it is. I tell people, if you can, there was Chad Carson who wrote a book for Bigger Pockets. He took Beater Cars to Millionaire, something like that was the title of his blog post.
Awesome.
And he drove cars like that for so long and reinvested everything in the real estate. And eventually, that wins. That philosophy wins. And that's exactly what I've done. That's exactly what a lot of people I know have done. And they don't spend money, or they don't finance consumer goods. They finance real estate, right? And it pays off big.
Oh, crazy big. I've made all of those mistakes coming up, before the recession. And I'm not blaming the recession on anything. I blame me 100% for what happened, because we should always be ready for stuff. There's no reason not to be ready. It's like a country being ready for war. You don't start building guns when someone threatens you. No, you got that crap in store. You got ammunition. You got all those things. I'm not a war guy. I don't like war. I don't like any of that stuff. But it's a preparation thing, and you got to prepare for that stuff before it happens, and then it doesn't hurt so bad. I didn't do that. When that hit, then it's my fault. It's totally my fault. We had, a toy hauler and motorcycles and a big truck I didn't need, to haul the toy hauler, and a lifestyle that we could easily afford without saving a lot of money at the time. But when the faucet shut off, nothing was coming in. We didn't have anything. We had nothing to fall back on. And that's really a really scary place, for a family with 3 kids. And that's exactly what happened to us. We allowed that to happen. I allowed that to happen to my family. And I never want to see anybody do that. And it's, buying real estate, especially at your age, is so easy to do. People think it's so hard, but it's really quite easy. It might be harder in certain places, but it's not hard. And if you do it, you'll be fine through these times. People will still rent. What does Rick say? Rent or buy or live under a bridge. I can't remember what his quote is, but it's a wonderful quote. But people are going to live somewhere, and may as well be in your place. So yeah, I'm it drives me crazy that people wait so long to do this, like I did, and they put everybody at risk around them without thinking about it. And it's almost selfish when you think about it. It really is almost selfish to go out and buy a new car instead of invest for your family. Hopefully people think that way. Sorry if I offended you.
And there's to every decision we make, there's an equal and opposite reaction to that, right? And like the law states. And so like when you talked about, you're stealing from yourself. When you buy a car or when you finance your new iPhone and the laptop and whatever, all these things that are not producing for you on a business sense, right? You are stealing from your future self to be able to reinvest or to be able to build wealth, right? And yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's so great that guys your age can see that now. And remember, when I was your age, there wasn't any talk about stuff like this. Nobody talked about stuff like this. Of course, there was no forum to talk about it. Yeah. There was no forum. There was no anything. And the opportunity that's available right now to learn and absorb and create online is just astounding. And not doing something about it, there's no excuse. Not one excuse out there.
Yeah, and just on the point of just waiting to do it, I mean, this is a long-term game. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. This takes years to build up. So the longer you wait, like, I'll start doing this when I'm 30. Well, what about those 10 years, that whole decade? Like, what could you have done in that decade? And where would you actually be at 30 instead of just waiting to do it?
No doubt. In 10 years, well, I don't know what appreciation is in your area, but, out here, the reason I invest in such expensive areas is because I'm doing the appreciation play. Now, I am a cash flow investor, but I'm really big on if you can buy in an area that goes up in value, do it. Don't not do it because it's too expensive. Most of my net worth is appreciation. Obviously, it's not because I'm a great saver, because I don't pay myself that much. My paycheck hasn't changed in the last 7 years, probably, because I pay myself a certain amount of money. My wife and I are both on payroll through our company, and we haven't given ourselves a raise. We don't need to. We're fine where we're at, but that 10 years of appreciation and paying down debt and all those other things that come into it that people don't think about, it's amazing. A lot of people buy a property and they go, okay, I've got $400 a month in expenses and I've got $150 a month in cash flow. There's my money. Well, I'm sorry, guys, that's not your money. The real money is in long-term holding it, like Drew said, is long-term holding it, going in for the marathon, not the sprint. And, 10 years later, you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden, depending on the area you're in and how much you've invested, you could be worth $3, $4, $5 million or $1 million or whatever. So that's strong.
Explain a little bit to everyone kind of the 4 pillars that you're talking about. Appreciation, depreciation, tax-wise, debt pay down, and then cash flow. You talk a lot about it, on your Instagram page and all that. Talk a little bit about like the benefits, all 4 of those, that most people maybe don't see.
Well, depreciation's really, really important. When you can depreciate, depreciation is you get a property and there's a value for the land and there's a value for the structure. The structure, let's say it's valued at $100,000. The government allows you to divide that $100,000 by 27.5, and that amount that's left over, after dividing it, is what you get to basically. It can change up and down a little bit, but that basic premise means that you can deduct that off of your income every year. So if you're making $10,000 a year, you can deduct, $400 or $500 off of that just through depreciation. You have an interest deduction on your loan. You can deduct the interest or most of the interest, depending on how you're invested. Any expenses you've got, mileage driving back and forth, any repairs under, I think is it $600 now or $500? No, my God, it's under $2,500 now. I'm just going through this on my taxes. So anything above $2,500 is a capital expense. Anything below is a repair that you can take off your taxes that year. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you've got to deduct it over 7 years, I think. But those things are real income, guys. It's not fake income. So if you've got a job like both you guys do, I'm assuming, and you're making money, you're paying taxes at 32% or whatever. that's real money that you can deduct, and you don't have to pay 32% in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
If you play your game right as a real estate investor, you don't pay many taxes, if any. So, and then on top of that, so the pillars, you've got your tax savings, you've got your depreciation, you've got appreciation. So appreciation is an amazing thing too, because it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't take you any extra effort. You buy a piece of property for $100,000, 20 years later, it's worth $250,000. It's magic. And also you've got rent appreciation. Your rents are going to go up. So there's so many profit centers in rentals, and we could go on and on about that. There's other ways to make money with your rentals, but those are just the I think 4 pillars you said.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely. So let's transition a little bit to house hacking, maybe in specific. And you talk to this, and even people just getting in real estate, but the mindset sort of it takes, like going from 0 to 1. There's a whole book and kind of like a whole mantra about that. You know, the snowball effect, right? Going from 1 to 3 is a lot easier, I guess you could say, than going from 0 to 1 sometimes, right? Getting that momentum going, takeoff, right? They say that, 95% of the energy on a rocket launch is right at launch, right? And then the rest is 5%. So like, talk about 0 to 1, somebody getting in, like the mindset of getting into house hacking or real estate in general.
It's mostly fear. You said 95% of, the rocket ship. So it's absolutely true with just getting started, and it doesn't really have a lot to do with finances. It's just the fear of jumping in. I'm scared that people are going to make fun of me. I'm scared, because I'm buying something that nobody else has. It's the fear of doing the unknown. It's the fear of screwing up. It's the fear of losing money. It's there's so many different fears, but it's all crap, guys. It's really all crap. Basically, it's all excuses because you just don't want to take the time to do it. It's hard. It's difficult. It's like a job. I'm telling you that 0 to 1 is so hard, but I kind of have a saying, 0 to 1 is really, really hard. 1 to 2 is hard. 2 to 3 is difficult. 3 to 4, getting palatable, but still kind of scary. You get up to 20, which if you keep going, you will, and you'll get there before you know it. Now you've got a rhythm, and once you hit 20, you've established enough momentum to where your income will be pretty consistent. Yeah. But you got to get to that first one, and I can't make you do it, but you've got to go out there and I kind of tell people the best way to do it is take those little steps every day. So when you're at lunch, instead of standing around the water cooler BSing with your friends about what you did over the weekend, stay at your desk, sit in your car, whatever. Research some areas, find out, go to open houses, figure out what you can do to move forward just a tiny bit every day so that you can feel mentally like you're making progress. Get your credit squared away, save money, get qualified for loans, find private money. There's a million things you can do to get ready. And then you got to take the step to do it. And that's difficult. But keep in mind that everybody here, all of us included, did that one time, and we're all alive and well. We're doing fine.
So it's very going from 0 to 1, like how do you mitigate that fear? Like what you're saying, taking those daily steps, does that mitigate that fear?
Absolutely.
Or do you suggest you have to push through that fear despite?
Oh, well, you're going to have to push through the fear too. But I'm a firm believer in taking massive action, and that's kind of how we got where we are. But at the same time, when you're starting, you've got to take little steps because you're scared to death to go. I know a lot of guys that just went out and did it. Maybe that was you. I don't know. But a lot of people need time, and I understand that. So during that time, take little steps. But you need to have a specific date and goal in mind. You can't just go, okay, I'm going to keep taking little steps for the rest of your life. Don't keep listening to us. Don't podcast out all day. Don't YouTube out all day. Don't Instagram out all day on people that are actually doing things. Get out and do it yourself. Mm-hmm. I've got no great advice for pushing through that last bit of fear to actually make that purchase, other than just friggin' do it. You have to commit to it and do it. You guys did it at a young age. It's a little scarier out here. Our prices are a little scarier, but it's still possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, biggest advantage to house hacking, and you can house hack many different ways, right? You can buy a single family house, live in it for a couple of years, and then move out and rent it out. There's many, you don't have to do the duplex or the rent by the room or some of the things that we do. But they have 0% down loan. They have 3% down loans. They have 5% down loans. When you're getting an investment property, as you know, right, mm-hmm. you have to, which I work, as an agent, I work with a lot of these, and I know you do as well, Mark, is you have to have 20 to 25%. You have to have reserves, right? The bank's going to do a thorough, credit, your credit has to be aligned, right? There are a lot of things that go into it. When you're buying a home, you can have weaker credit. You can have just the down payment. They have down payment assistance. You can draw from a 401k, right? You can, you can do some unique things to get into a property because the U.S. government incentivizes a home ownership for, primary residences. When you jump in, when you're trying to become just a traditional investor, it's much harder. And that's the advantage of house hacking.
I agree. And I did a Sauce, my protege. Yeah. He's 22. He's a pretty on fire guy. We did a YouTube video on that, I don't know, about a month and a half ago, I guess, on hacking a house here in my area. So it was a 4-bedroom house and, easy FHA, loan. It was $750,000, give or take. And I think, what are the FHA limits now? 775 or some crazy thing?
Yeah.
Well, that's my area.
Yeah. I think it's nationally too, though, but.
Okay. And we hacked this thing to death. We really went in there, and I knew the neighborhood, so I knew the house was hackable, but I wasn't sure how hackable. And so I love doing those videos, and we'll do more of those because it really does speak to people that are just starting. But so imagine buying a $750,000 house. I don't know what that is in your area, but here you get about a 2,000 square foot 4-bedroom house. And this one had a foundation failure, but that's not part of it. We ended up finding a way to seal off the living room, which still left the living room the dining room / family room for a living area, and renting out basically 5 bedrooms in this house and actually being able to break even. So you think about that. You have a $750,000 house you can break even on.
Yeah.
And you live in one and rent out the other 4, which of course is what you guys preach.
Yeah. And then over 30 years, now all of a sudden that house is worth 1.5 million or whatever, right? And you got it paid off, 2.5. There you go. And and you got it paid off, and you lived for free through that whole time. So everything you made in your job or whatever, right? Now you can reinvest or save or whatever, yeah. We totally agree.
It's astounding. It's just amazing that people are scared to do something that's so good for you. It's like working out, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But when you do it, you feel good and you look good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that, I did another video, or I don't know, I do so many videos. I think I actually went over, on that particular video, I think I actually did the math on a flip chart right before that video. Just go to my YouTube. I don't have 100 videos. I got 10.
We'll put in a link. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyway, there's a good video on there where I do the math on what it could be worth and how much money it's really simple math, And if you can do that for a few years and then get rid of all the people that are there and move a family in and let them make the payments for you. And at that time, obviously you've already done a couple more. You're golden, guys.
Yeah.
If you do something like that and you're only able to get, say, 4 houses, especially in our area, if you can get 4 houses that are paid down, let's say you start and you can do one every 3 years. And at the end of, 12 years, you've got 4 houses. Well, now you've got, what is that? a little over $6 million in real estate in today's dollars.
Yeah.
But rents around here on those houses, if you're just renting to a family, believe it or not, around $3,800 in rent. So you apply my 40% rule, which I know where you're at, you use the 50% rule, but out here we can do about 40%. because our rents are high. You do the 40% rule, and let's say the rents are 4,000. 40% of that is what? Help me, guys. You're younger. You got 4 houses. That's
you'd be like 1,800 or whatever. 1,800.
So you got, let's say, $2,200 left. So you've got almost $10,000 in income coming in once those houses are paid down. And that's from doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's from doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, sounds like a good retirement account.
Yeah. And you've got how many millions of dollars in assets. So that's pretty cool.
So let's transition a little bit into that, because I love your 40% rule. And it really depends on where you're at in our area. I often use I vary between them, and I tell people all the time, like, getting fixed on 50 or 40 or whatever, some of these rules, you have to know where you're at. You have to know the taxes you pay. You have to know the income you're making, the other variable expenses. But that is a common mistake that maybe newbies forget about, is all the other expenses, right, on properties. And that's why a 40 or 50% rule is awesome. Talk about kind of how new investors should start evaluating properties. 40% rule. What are some of the other things as well that can help them?
It's the quick and dirty way to evaluate a house is 40% expense ratio plus debt. So in other words, you're going to take your property taxes, your property management, your CapEx, CapEx is all the big expenses, roofs and water heaters and things. And you're going to take your repairs, which is your light fixtures and things like that. What else am I missing here? Sorry. Landscape maintenance. I don't know if I said property taxes, utilities. Any
vacancy.
Yeah, but I usually use 7% on vacancy. And I put all those into a quick formula, and it comes out to about 41 to 42%. Some are a little bit lower, some are a little bit higher. So I just go at 40%. And then you've got your debt, which is whatever your loan payment is. So those are your monthly expenses. So it's really super easy to figure out what if a place is going to work or not. Okay, so once you've figured out that, yeah, this looks good, then you're going to go into the actual expenses. But I caution you, and I know you guys agree with this, even if it comes out to 30%, because you're going to be cutting the grass and you're going to be doing the repairs and you're going to be managing it and it's never going to be vacant and blah, 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 still use that 40 to 50% rule. I mean, like I said, 40% in my probably 50% in yours. I don't know. I know you use the 50%. Don't ever stray from that, because that's where you get in trouble. Because one day you won't be managing it if you have units. Mm-hmm. One day you won't be doing the repairs. There's going to be a lot of times that come, and one day a tree is going to fall through your roof. Trust me.
That happened.
Yay! Me too.
That happened to me.
Or you'll get termites in your tree.
Just a couple weeks ago.
No way. Seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got people displaced, and of course insurance is going to take care of everything.
Yeah.
Not really. So always be ready. And another thing is, make sure and take all that reserve money, your CapEx expenses, your repair money, and your vacancy, and put it in a separate account. And I'm usually pretty good about that. But do as I say, not as I do, right? Put that money in a separate account, because you will be using it someday. You can draw down on that once a year. If you have 5 units, and at the end of the year you've got $40,000 in your fund, you can draw down on that. But I'd suggest not doing that for the first 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. You never know what's going to happen. I think I did a video last night. I don't think I did. I did. And it was about, there's no profit this week in my rentals. None. I mean, this is a guy, I've got $10 million in real estate, which is not huge. I know that, but nonetheless, it's a decent portfolio.
Yeah.
And I'll have no profit this week, as diversified as I am, because so many stupid things happen and nothing I could control. But be ready for those storms. Mm-hmm. Remember, we're always taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back in the rental business.
And it kind of comes back to you talking about getting your house in order, because even, as a new investor, right, we need to get our personal finance house in order. We need to get our credit score right. We need to get our consumer debt paid down. We don't want to be over leveraged on this side to where it affects our investing ability. But then it also comes back to once you start house hacking, right, you have a house or two. You also want to keep your house in order in that sense,
Right.
because, getting 6 houses all at once and having no reserves and then getting wiped out by a market cycle, or like you talked about the faucet turning off, that's no good either. And Craig Kurlop, who wrote the house hacking strategy book for Bigger Pockets, was on the show. He talked about kind of the similar thing, how each property, he'll build up 10,000 reserve for each one, and so the first 6 months or a year or whatever, he'll funnel every dime into this fund, and then he'll go on to the next property. And there's different strategies, but making sure you have your house in order while you have property is super important too, and that's a great point.
I totally agree, and you guys both know how I feel about taking your rental profits. I'm not a big believer in that. If you've got to live on your rental profits while you're still building your portfolio, now let's just focus on that for a second. So many people are doing this so they can quit their day job, and I get that. Nobody wants to keep their day job once they start investing. And you guys may be looking at this as a way to not have a day job, and I'm slightly against that. I'm really, really big on people keeping that day job for as long as possible until the rental business becomes so much work that they can't handle it anymore. Reason being is because then you don't need to spend your rent on living, and you'll have much more to invest. So you can compound on top of compounding. And most people don't realize that. I see so many people talking about, I quit my day job. I quit my day job. I'm 27. I quit my day job. And I'm 47. No, 57. Holy crap. 57. Sorry. And I'm not going to quit my day job ever. I like what I do, number one. But number two, I flip houses. I'm a real estate agent. I wholesale. I'm involved in other kinds of deals. My wife has an online business. We're not quitting anytime soon. All that money we make, we can reinvest, or we just live on it. Live on it.
Yeah, and I think that's the big takeaway that I have come to a conclusion as well, right? Because there are a lot of people that promote, quitting your day job, and there's some validity to it. But I think the bigger thing is, like you talked about right now, is there's a book called Work Optional, and it kind of gets into the realm of quitting your job. But the biggest thing that I took away from it is the fact that when you start building rental income, kind of where I'm at, you now get the choice of leaving maybe the job you're in now to go towards a career that you'd like even more as a real estate agent, flipping house, being able to, grind. I have basically 3 jobs, right? I have a day job. I work as a real estate agent, and I also own the properties and manage and stuff like that. To where my wife and I are working to go full-time as an agent and an investor. We're kind of getting to that point. And that's the thing that real estate allows you to do. Do what you actually love. Don't quit and sit on a beach, because it's probably not going to work out that way, but quit to do what you really love.
Yeah. That always kills me. I remember, years ago, there were all these like Dave Delgado and people on TV about getting rich in real estate. And I was looking at it was late night, of course, and they're always sitting on a beach with a computer. And back then there was no computers in their lap, but they were sitting on a beach, drinking a drink, and money's flowing in. And it doesn't work that way, guys. It just doesn't work that way. Money doesn't flow in unless you make it flow in. Yeah. And having that job is so important. And you guys are doing it right. Now, it's so funny that you bring up doing what you love. You're going to find this hard to believe, but in high school, and my 1 year of college, I got a scholarship to my college, my university, because I used to sing. Yeah, I know.
I can see it.
Nice.
Oh, give me a break. Mark the contractors.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed performing. I was an actor, and I really, really enjoyed that. And I stopped doing it as soon as I got booted out of college. I went into framing houses, And that's pretty much, that's my background now is basically hard labor, which I loved. And now that I'm back doing kind of what I do is my daily videos and things, it's performing, and I am having so much fun with it and enjoying it, and talking to guys like you and being able to share experiences back and forth. I have found, much as my wife has, she's doing the same thing, albeit in Japan. We've both found that this is truly what we love to do. Now, can I make money with it? I'm not even trying to make money with it.
Right.
I just enjoy the heck out of it.
Yeah.
I'm certainly spending a lot of time with it.
Yeah.
But I love it. So I've found something that I really enjoy, and my day job kind of supports it. So,
yeah.
Even if you can't do what you love, my point is that even if you can't do what you love, find something that you love that your job will allow you to do.
I 100% agree. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And that's why I appreciate you, so much. You can just feel, you get a sense of people real quick, even on the online space, and you can just feel you and Rick are just two genuine people that love, you're just having so much fun with it, and I mean, you could go, and buy another 10 million in real estate, but it wouldn't bring you the joy that maybe this is, and communicate with Rick and Instagram lives. And, it's just something that you enjoy doing. And that's what real estate allows you to do. And, it is a little bit of a fairy tale. All these people, passive income takes a long time to build up. I tell people all the time, I mean, especially as a house hacker, it's not very passive. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? At my day job, I deal with a lot of crap. I don't deal with that much crap in my rentals, maybe once a month, maybe once every other month, but you do deal with stuff. You do have to go, do certain things, or at least hire people to do certain things. But it's worth it. And it allows you to do what you love.
Well, it does. But it's funny how, you bring up a good point. When that stuff happens with your rentals, I don't care where you're at. It still blindsides you every time, financially, mentally, physically. And you've got to be ready for that. It's a job. It's you hit the nail on the head. And I think Drew and I were talking about it before, is there's no such thing as passive income. Didn't we talk about this, Drew?
We may have, yeah.
Okay. But there's no such thing as passive income. I've never seen it. Now, I've heard about it. If you're lucky enough to have a trust fund and it's invested through a family office, and they're calling all the shots, and you trust them and they're doing a good job, I guess that's the closest thing to passive income you can get. But, other than that, no matter what you do requires work and risk. And if you think getting into this doesn't involve that, you've got another thing coming. But the rewards are, the rewards are crazy.
Yeah.
And at your age, at 27, by the time so I started when I was 47, right? Okay, it's dead broke, $100 to my name, a couple of quarters.
Yeah. And
just think about where you guys are going to be at 47 compared to me starting at 47. I'm astounded at, it's crazy what I think you guys will be able to accomplish in that amount of time. I'm just, it excites me. I hope I'm alive at that time and we're still talking. And
well, I'm sure we will.
Yeah, well, hopefully. It's not that far off.
Right.
but no, I'm really excited to see how you guys grow specifically. Because
my favorite
video, how you are.
My favorite video on the entire internet is Gary Vaynerchuk talking about passive income. And, he just, and I really respect Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a hustler, kind of like you are, and a lot of other people. He's like, it's all basically crap, right? It's just people selling you on this fairy tale of living on a beach. But there's very, very, very few people that are ever able to, accomplish that. And you have to realize that, because you're going to be super disappointed if you think that's what it is. But it's rewarding and it's worth it. Real estate is 100% worth it. You talked about the 4 pillars and all the benefits. But the biggest thing, at least from my point of view, is it's allowing us, where my wife and I are now starting to shift towards what we love more. Right. Mm-hmm. And we spend money on the things that give us gratification, where, we help out in our community and starting to do more things like that. Right. And we're not as money focused because we essentially live for free. We've been doing that for a long time, and, it's rewarding.
Mm-hmm. And there's something to be said about being the master of your own destiny too. There's a billion memes and on Instagram and everywhere else about, don't build somebody else's business, build your own. But it's really true. If you don't work on building your own thing, there's no guarantee that the thing you're in now is going to be there tomorrow. The only guarantee is what you make for yourselves and the things that you build for yourselves. I've had so many opportunities in my life that have gone away that I thought were going to be the greatest thing, working with somebody or working for somebody else. And there's nothing guaranteed there. If they decide that they don't want to do it anymore, or you guys get in an argument, or they downsize, or they go out of business, you're done. You are done. And if you've got your own portfolio of properties, even if one goes bad, you still have others to back you up. Mm-hmm. So that's the only way you're ever going to have a consistent income is by building a portfolio of properties or having a product that you can sell. But even then, people can stop wanting your product. But people are always going to need to live somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Just to expand on the passive income thing too, just because it's not passive doesn't mean it's not simple. If you want to get started, we believe that house hacking is the best way to get started. It lets you learn the game. It's essentially like training wheels to becoming a landlord, an investor, all those things. And you can follow a model that other successful people have already done. So just because you're not getting this easy, sit back on the beach, passive income, doesn't mean it's not simple, but it's work. And you have to put in that work.
You make a great point. It's easier. Okay, let's just say you've got to live somewhere. Okay, that's a given, right? We've all got to live somewhere. And you can live at your parents for free, or you can live in your own house for free, and house hacking allows that. Now, you may have to pay something in an area like this, and it may be some work, but it's still going to be cheaper than paying rent. And if you don't take advantage of that while you're young, I don't know who brought that up earlier.
Yeah, the opportunity window with kids absolutely.
If you don't take advantage of that now, Bradley, you brought it up. If you don't take advantage of it now, it's going to be too late. It's like I tell my kids, after college, or if you don't go to college, take a year and go travel. I'll pay for it. Mm-hmm. It's on me. I'm not going to, you're not going first class. You're not staying in hotels. You're staying in hostels and you're living out of a backpack, but go travel for a year. It's on my dime. And because the opportunity will never come up again until you're older generally, to do that. And it's going to be a different perspective at that point. Then you're going to want to sit and drink coffee instead of going out to nightclubs and having fun doing things. And then settle down. Take advantage of it while you can. It's the same thing with investing. You can, even as a couple, even with young kids, you can live in an apartment, but when those kids go to school or high school, you've got to be in the right school district. So you can take advantage of it right up until those kids go into school. Mm-hmm. Man, once that starts, it's all over. It's all over. And you've got that 10-year window, between 20 and 30 where you can really kill it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And aligning yourself with the right people. A lot of times you talked about the baby, the baby steps, the small steps it takes to go from 0 to 1 for newbie investors, and aligning yourself with people and sharing their confidence, a lot of times is another key. Right. Because it is very frightening. I think back when I was 20 and I bought my first place, and it was a disaster. I lost everything. My tenant got murdered. I lost every dime I ever put into the house. And it was a frightening experience. And then going back and starting over and buying another one was even more frightening. Right. But and I didn't really align myself with people. I just somehow, push through that. But I can sympathize for people's fear. And, and going to meetups like you talked about, getting on Facebook pages or and aligning yourself with people that are maybe doing it or in early stages, and loaning each other confidence is huge.
Mm-hmm. I agree. If it wasn't for that when we started, I don't know what I'd do. And I've always been the guy that keeps everything real close. And I think that's stifled my growth over the last 10 years. When I come up with this brilliant idea, whatever it is at the time, I don't want to share it with anybody or in the past I didn't, because I was afraid someone was going to steal it and run with it. You know what, guys? Nobody ever steals your ideas and runs with them. No one actually, very rarely, moves forward.
Yeah.
They read, they watch, they consume, but they don't actually do anything. So if you've got a great idea, no one's going to steal it. You don't have to worry about that. And sharing it makes it real. Keeping it inside you doesn't. You know, I think the hardest thing when we were starting this whole thing was keeping to ourselves, number one, and number two, not getting rid of or managing the people in our lives that didn't believe in it, didn't believe in us. And I think the best way to handle that now, and I'm sorry if that wasn't a question, but I know this comes up a lot for me, is what do you do with people that think you're full of crap? I don't talk to them about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I mean, now I can, because obviously it's different now 10 years later, but I just don't talk to them about it. There's people in my life that are going to be in my life regardless, you know, family members, you know, sometimes it's a spouse, not saying it's mine. Obviously she's on board. It can be your older kids. It can be your brothers and sisters and things like that. Guys, seriously, people are going to judge. They're going to judge you. And if you know your friends and family are judgy, then just keep your mouth shut. You don't have to share with them. Like Bradley said, go someplace where you can get people of a like mind and where you can get pumped up rather than brought down. And everybody else, all the naysayers, don't talk to me. If someone says, oh, you're doing that real estate thing, say, oh, yeah, you know, sort of just dabbling in it.
Yeah.
And don't talk about it again.
Yeah.
And then someday you can talk to them about it and share with them and show them how you did it in a loving way and, you know, not put it in their face because they're scared. Because people, I don't know, you're not asking, but I'm gonna say it. People are scared of change. And if it looks like you might be moving up, they're going to get more negative generally, the people closest to you, because they feel like you're leaving their circle and they don't want to leave. They like the old, it's comfortable. The uncomfortable part for them is the fact that you're growing, expanding, making more money and doing things for yourself. That's scary for them. So don't look at the naysayers as people that hate you or don't want you to succeed. It's not that. It really isn't. It's a psychological thing for them. So, you know, have not pity for them, but empathy, because they don't understand. But if you succeed, then you can share it with them and hopefully bring them in.
And this is a point that we have never brought up on the show. It's something I think about often, though, is the fact that house hacking is so foreign. It's such a foreign concept, right? To live with people. And especially like at a place where I work, which is a Fortune 500 company, and, you know, maybe, you know, higher income earners. And, you know, I don't talk at all about house hacking really, you know, because it's just such a foreign concept to most people. And it is really important, you know, that you're going to get discouraged if you start shouting out, you know, these ideas to people and they're all pounding you back down, because that's exactly what they're trying to do. They want to feel comfortable with you in their circle. Right. And so let's all be the same. Let's all buy a bigger house than we can afford. Let's all, you know, finance our car and have huge debt and watch the Super Bowl and just be happy with our lives. You know, and so, yeah, this is super important conversation. Yeah.
And, you know, there's something I've always believed in. And I think I coined the phrase, and it doesn't matter if I did, because I've never heard it before, but I'm always been a firm believer in quiet money. And quiet money is something that people can't see it. They can feel it kind of, but they can't see it. And, you know, that's the best way to do this sort of thing. Is you don't want to do a lot of flash. Number one, you should reinvest that money, but quiet money keeps the spotlight off of you. And, you know, once you start wearing the Gucci belts and driving the Porsches, which I told you before, I'm getting one. I'm going to do it. And moving into the bigger house, people start noticing that. And that makes you a target. So that's a whole nother discussion. But, you know, quiet money is important. And I want people to think about that, especially as you're growing.
Yeah.
You know, you want to get a little louder later on, that's fine. But when you're growing, you should just keep your nose down.
And there's concept, I listen to a lot of different people because I just like to hear their concepts about it. And like Dave Ramsey, I think Dave Ramsey has his place. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he has, but a concept that he talks about is so important in retrospect to what you're talking about. He talks about like the law of averages. So if you buy a new car, right, showing up to the golf course, you can't bring those 15-year-old clubs anymore, right? Or people will be like, what are you doing driving in a Porsche, having 50-year-old golf clubs, hand-me-down golf clubs? You better go buy a $4,000 pair, $4,000 pair, whatever, of golf clubs. And when you go to the bar, you have to maybe buy a round now, and all these law of averages that when you put yourself in a position, when you buy a bigger house, now you got to fill it with furniture. You got to fill it with decor, right? And it's just he calls it the law of average, and it's so important to at least think about, because for every decision, like we talked about, for every decision we make, there's an equal and opposite reaction, whether we know what there is or not. With housing purchases, with car purchases, or just whatever, you have to at least know the equal and opposite reaction. Otherwise, it's going to bite you.
Well, that's a great point. I guess I subconsciously thought of it that way, but I never really heard it said. I've listened to Dave Ramsey. I that may be where the baby steps thing came from. I don't even know where that came from. It's just something I've always kind of believed in and put a name on it. But I agree with that, especially in my area. I don't know what it's like where you guys are, but
not quite as much.
Not
quite as much as you do. Not quite as flashy as where you're at.
We have so many friends that live in, $5, $6, $10 million houses just because of the area we're at and the school that my son goes to. We don't in any way, shape, or form live like that. And it's not because we don't want to or because we do want to. It's just the way we are. So I can see that. in all around me. One of my friends, there's a really high-end neighborhood about 3 miles away from my house, but it's in a different world than our world. Mm-hmm. And the houses there start at $2 million for a tear down, and they go up to, $6 or $7 million. So for Newport Beach, it's probably a middle to middle high neighborhood. Crazy as that seems. Mm-hmm. And I talked to my friend that lives there, and he said, they've lived there for a long time. And he said, it's amazing. A lot of trust fund people live there, and a lot of people that are just getting ready to lose everything. He goes, it's so, when you get down and have a couple of beers with some of these dads, when we have the family parties and stuff, they don't let on, but after a couple of beers, they start talking sometimes, and it's just scary. Yeah. The money that they're borrowing to keep the Range Rover and keep the Porsche in the garage and have the big house. And of course, like you said, the furniture and the trips and the clothes and, oh, geez Louise, it just keeps going and going. I never actually thought of it that way. I mean, I've always known it, but yeah, you brought up a good point.
It's just a really fascinating concept that, my wife and I think of every time we make purchases, right? Like just the equal and opposite reaction. Set for Life, Scott Trench had a book that completely changed my entire concept of money. And, like Dave Ramsey talks about variable versus fixed expenses, where he'll talk about the latte factor and, and don't drink your Starbucks and all that stuff, save money in there. And where Scott Trench talked about, that might represent 2% of your total budget for the whole year. But if you attack housing and your vehicle, that's 50%. And now you can go splurge at Starbucks every day of the year, and you're really not going to dent that much into that 50% you're saving, and like, right. That's just the thing we think of, let's live the life that we want to, let's have some fun. Let's go out to eat with friends if we want to, right. Build relationships, go on trips. But let's be very, very, very mindful of attempting to live for free with house hacking, driving, we pay our pay our cars off. She's got a nicer, a 5-year-old car or whatever, but it's paid off. We don't have car debt. And we live for free, and then that allows us to live a more meaningful life on the variable stuff.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I think, I don't know, 3 days ago, I had a video on frugal versus cheap. I'm frugal, and I've been cheap. And cheap is no fun. No one wants to be around cheap. Cheap is annoying. They won't shut the hell up. They have opinions on everything you do. And cheap is annoying. No one wants to be around cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Frugal, on the other hand, has a good time. They're the life of the party, but they went to Costco and got a bulk price on the beer or the wine or the sandwiches or whatever, rather than going to the place in town in Newport Beach where you can get the label on top of the, sandwich or the bread, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just being more mindful of how you spend your money and respecting it. People have such a lack of respect for the money that they've got. They spend, the majority, people don't work 8 hours a day anymore, man. I work 15 hours a day. And people have such a lack of respect for the amount of time they put into making money. It's amazing how much they don't respect the money they make.
How quickly they dish it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys ever been to a foreign country?
Just Mexico and Canada.
Okay. So, Drew?
Just Canada.
Okay. So, I don't know if it's relatable or not, but whenever I go to a foreign country, it is so much easier once I exchange my money into the currency of whatever country I'm in. It's so much easier to spend the money because it doesn't feel like real money at that time. And I completely lose any and all respect I have for money. Nah, that's not completely true, but it's really easy to lose respect for money because you've changed it into something else. And in the United States, we have the same crap going on. It's called credit cards and debit cards and lines of credit and things like that. And you completely lose respect for money. If you carry money in your pocket and you pay cash for everything, you feel it, you know it. And that's a really, really great way to help you with your expenditures when you're walking around town, grabbing a coffee, grabbing a sandwich. What is it? And I know you guys are going to cut this up, but I had two instances, and then you guys can reel me back in. Two experiences in the last few years with people I know and remain to be, I'm not going to tell you who they are, but one of them, friend of mine, wife, a couple of kids, more than a couple, and they're Starbucks fans. And seriously, I mean, he walks in every morning with a Starbucks. I know the wife always has a Starbucks. The kids get Starbucks. He's paying for it. And then they always do it in the evening too. And we're talking maybe 10 Starbucks a day at $4 a pop plus a tip.
Right.
What does that come out to? $50 a day?
Right.
So $350, is that $350 a week? Is that astounding or what? And you don't feel it. You don't feel it.
$1,400 a month. That's over $15,000 a year just at Starbucks. Yeah.
Years.
Yeah.
Folgers.
and then one of my guys that works for me, construction guys, he'll go out and buy stuff in the morning, and he'll get a 12-pack of Cokes, he'll get a case of water, and this is just for him and two other guys, and packaged food and stuff, all this stuff at 7-Eleven, and spend $50-$60 every morning, and then he goes out to lunch and buys lunch for the crew. Like, bro, you're spending easily $80 a day on air. Or it's not air because when it comes out, it ain't air. But seriously, $80 a day that is coming out of your pocket that would pay for probably all your expenses at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just astounds me. Live your life, enjoy your life, have a good time, but just be mindful of those little things. Like you guys are saying the same thing.
So my brother's a contractor, and every time I go out with him, it just blows my mind, right? Because all of his workers, they stop, we have Speedways out here. I don't know if you guys do as well, but they stop at Speedway for breakfast. They'll get a coffee and bagels and smokes and 2 Monster energy drinks and, maybe even a Mountain Dew for the, it just, blows my mind. They got this big old bag like they're coming out of, Walmart or something. Yeah. And then they'll go, to fast food for lunch. Then on the way home, they already blew through their pack of smokes, so they stop and grab another pack of smokes. Maybe they'll grab some beer for the night, at the convenience store, which is, instead of a 24-pack for $20, they get 2 for $5 or whatever, Yeah. And then they get this and that, and I'm like, it blows my mind. And then they get dinner on the way back home. It's nuts.
And they're always broke.
Yeah.
They can afford all that, but it's really tough to pay rent, and it's really tough to make the truck payment, insurance payment.
Yeah.
And it's not, that isn't even a mindset. I can't even call that a mindset. A mindset would be something that you develop to correct that. I think that's just, I don't know what it is. It's just
carelessness.
It's something that we're not taught.
I think it shows the influence that other people can have on you, because talking to you guys has a very positive influence on me, but on the reverse, people that are carelessly spending, it could have a negative influence on you and kind of bring you into those habits.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it goes along with picking your company too. You guys are probably better at these quotes than me, because I'm not real good at remembering them, but you're the product of the 5 people you hang around most. Is that correct? Or 7 or whatever?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Exactly.
The 5 is usually.
And it's true, because, you can feel yourself adjusting sometimes when you're around certain people. I'm around 5 people all the time, and one of them's here and one of them's here and one of them's here. And it's like, you kind of adjust yourselves a little bit. And if everybody's all up here, it makes a big difference. And I've never quite mastered that. I have people that I hang around that I really look up to, that are really, really good for me, and people that aren't, it just is, it's just life. But again, I think that there's the eternal question is how do you get rid of the people in your life that don't bring you up? You can't, guys. You can't. You can limit your time with them. You can limit what you tell them. But more than likely, you're going to have that around. You just have to be strong enough to get past it. But yeah, man, that contractor thing, and I see it every day. I don't go into 7-Eleven very often, but whenever I do, the guys are in there grabbing stuff. And these guys are making $15 an hour.
Yeah.
And they're grabbing $40 worth of stuff. It's like,
yeah. So I get the experiences every single day. I'll go into, my day job, and, people make some money. So there's a little bit more, whatever, but they're a little bit more mindful of their money, right? They don't really got to show off for their job too much. There's a little bit of element of that. There always is, but then I'll leave and I'll go do my real estate agent gig, right? And I'll take clients out, but I'll go back to the office, right? And then there's in the real estate industry, there's a lot of showboating, right? So a lot of the agents I'm with, great guys, right? But they got to drive the nicest car. They got to, buy the steak dinner every night. They got to, a lot of the things that, agent life, lives with. And then I'll come back in a circle like this, which I really, and talk to people like you and a lot of my other friends who live more of a not a cheap life, but a frugal life. And we're very mindful, and so every single day I get to experience like this realm, and it's just a merry-go-round for me. Experience, living in different people's shoes and realizing, man, this gets old, like needing to re-impress people every single day.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point earlier that compounds, the more you do it, the worse it gets, especially if you're trying to keep up with friends that have more money than you. That's a good way to go bankrupt. There's people out there that actually do have money, that have a lifestyle, and I'm around them. And you have to be really mindful of that. When they say, hey, we're going to go to Vail for the weekend, do you want to go? It's like, yeah, I could go skiing for the weekend. All right, we're going to take a net jet. So, I'll send you the account, and it's like, I'm so sorry. Something came up, and I'm not going to be able to make that. A net jet to Vail, I don't know. It's got to be what, 15 grand, 20 grand. Come on.
You're right.
But to them, it's some of these people are absolutely in that position where that's like us taking the kids to Disneyland, which is actually pretty expensive. So, you got to be really careful about that too. It's one thing to hang around people that bring you up, but don't try to rise up to their level with them. It's a slow, steady crawl. Yeah. And you got to be really careful with that, because a lot of times they're not mindful of it. They're not bad people. They just don't realize where you're at. And they say, hey, let's go out to dinner. And you go out to dinner And usually we just split the bill. Whenever we go out to dinner, we split the bill with whoever we're with. It's you have more. I don't drink, so usually the bill's skewed a little bit. But I don't want to be cheap, so I go, let's just split it 3 ways, 4 ways, whatever. And every once in a while, we'll go out with some friends, and it's like, ooh, good Lord,
Yeah.
there's 2 car payments if we had car payments.
Right.
So you have to be careful with that too. As you crawl up to hanging around other people that are more successful than you, you have to be mindful of that.
Right. Awesome. So we know you got busy day today. We'll get you out of here pretty soon. But we got a question we always ask every guest, and it's sort of what separates house hackers, the people that actually do it, from those that never actually get around to house hacking. And it could be even deeper. Like what separates people that are the action takers from those that just fantasize about taking action and getting in real estate?
2 things we've already talked about them. The one thing that's going to stop you from doing it is there's a mental part, but there's also a physical, actual, real part, which is buying Monster drinks for breakfast in the morning. It's not being mindful of your money and not respecting it. That stops most people. Until you get your house in order, you don't have the mentality to do it, and you're going to lose. So I think that's what stops most people, is it's up here. Because if it was a money thing that stopped us from investing, none of us would ever invest, because most of us don't start with money. Is that correct?
That's absolutely
really
correct.
Don't. So I think it's mostly mental. I think it's either fear or a lack of self-control with your money, or a combination of both. And once you can conquer that money thing, where you respect your money because of how hard you work for it, and you love it, and you cuddle it, and you grow it, and you send it off to work every day so it can come back with more. Money works. Look at every dollar bill as a little worker, and that little worker goes out to work every day, and it comes back with another 5 cents. And so it's getting a little bit bigger every day. Weird analogy, I guess, but
no, it's absolutely
good.
That's what money is. And if you don't respect it, if you go out and spend your money on silly things that you put things in your body that exit the next day, right? We kind of touched on that earlier. So let's just be rude. The stuff that you're spending a lot of money on every day leaves your body every day. And it is not an investment. And it brings very momentary pleasure, if any pleasure at all. The Monster drinks, the cigarettes, the beers, the wine, the fast food, the expensive restaurants, all those things like that. That's where we're spending most of our discretionary income, guys. Really, honestly, it really is when you add it up.
Yeah.
So get your house in order. That's what's stopping most people from investing. They don't feel like they can do it, but that's something they have to get their arms around too. Everybody can do this. And spending time, like listening to guys like you, get in with your peer group. It's great to listen to the old guy that's been doing it for a while, but this old guy started doing it 10 years ago. But, listening to guys like you that are actually doing it at 27, before you're 30, that is where you need to be. Listen to guys like me to know what it can be like once you've been doing it for a while, but listen to guys like these that are actually doing it now and building, and that will help you. It's one of those things where if they can do it, I can do it. That's really true. But get your house in order first so that you feel good about yourself. Clean up your mind.
The thing I appreciate most about you is here in the Midwest, we have a little bit more, maybe a little bit more respect for money. I would say, I've traveled a little bit around the country, and there's a little bit of different attitude here in the Midwest. It's a little bit more blue collar, maybe, in the fact where people go to work and they maybe have a little more respect, not a lot, but out on the coast, especially in Newport and Orange County, there's a lot of flash, right? I mean, every time I go out there, I'm amazed by how many Porsches are out there, and everyone's got a Gucci belt, and we talked about some of these different things, some of these different status symbols, I guess. But it really is awesome to hear it from a guy like you. You've built an impressive portfolio, and you live out on the coast, and you're still like, you know what? I'm not, not cheap, but I'm mindful. I'm frugal, and I'm not going to go take a helicopter, for 15 grand to go, on a ski trip and, and things like that. I'm going to be mindful and, yeah, we're going to take the kids to Disneyland, but, but we're going to do it because we're mindful and continue to reinvest and send our money out to work every day. And so, yeah, I really appreciate the message.
Oh, thank you. Guys, it's all about balance. It's all just balance. And do the things you enjoy. Don't do the things that you think other people are going to enjoy watching you do. Don't live the Instagram life. That's the hardest part now, I guess, and thank you for the compliment. That's the hardest part right now, I think, is that there's so much out there competing for your eyeballs, and everything you see looks so good. And it's such momentary happiness. Mm-hmm. Really think about the things that make you happy. What makes you joyful? What brings joy into your life every day? The little simple things that you do, and concentrate on those. Because buying something isn't going to change that, because a new car doesn't smell like a new car in a year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel any different than your old car in 3 months. Maybe a little bit better, but really seriously, it doesn't give you that spark of joy that you had the second you got into it. Mm-hmm. So just know that that's fleeting. But the things that you do with your family and the camping trips and things like that you do are it's so important.
It's so easy, when you become maybe a hustler, a grinder like you are, working 15 hours a day. I know Drew and I, do a lot of that as well. Yeah. Like there's I battle with this all the time. There's like that, everyone's competing, like you talked about, for your eyeballs, your attention, your money, right? And so you're working your tail off, and there's always that little whisper in the back of your ear from commercials and advertisements on Instagram and whatever, just saying, hey, you work so hard, like go buy a new truck, go buy a new vehicle, like you work so hard, like, you deserve that new watch, or, you deserve that vacation, to Italy for, which all these things are, not necessarily bad things, they're good things.
No,
but,
of course.
But the harder you work, the easier it is those temptations become to be like, you deserve this, like you work way harder than, Joe over here. Joe only puts in 8 hours and goes home and plays video games, and he's driving the new car, or he's got the new phone or whatever. Like, you deserve that. And it does get more difficult sometimes to battle those off.
Rather, yeah, it totally does. But that's just because you're living a life that through other people's eyes, and you need to really step back and look at what makes you happy. And so many people don't do that. They, especially around here, you mentioned it. You look at my, not so much anymore, because I've kind of whittled my Instagram feed down to the people that interact with me.
Yeah.
But I for first 3 or 4 months I was on Instagram. Of course, I connected with all my real estate people around here. It's crazy the money that they spend every night. And I know these folks, and a lot of them really aren't doing much, but they're going out to Javier's, which is, it's at least $120 for a plate of food and a couple of drinks, and they're kicking their heels up, and it seems like every night. And maybe they're just posting old pictures. I don't know. But they're going home at the end of the night going, oh, that was fun. Thanks so much. And they get in their car and go, oh my God, I've got nothing coming in, and I got to make my car payment tomorrow, and I just spent $200.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go do it again tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So.
And now they have to, right? They've created this image to where now they no matter if they want to or not, they have to. If they go take somebody out, and they're driving the Lambo, they have to pick up the tab, or, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's expected. It's expected. There's a guy, I can't remember. He had a YouTube video out just a couple of months ago, and the premise was this group of people sitting at a table, and they're all talking about how they're doing this and that, and oh yeah, we just got back from Aruba, and oh yeah, our chalet, and this guy goes, hey, have you seen my new Porsche? And he pulls out a picture of it, and everybody's going, ooh, that's nice, that's nice. And then the bill comes, and he goes, I'll get it, don't worry. And he looks in his wallet and is like, oh sure, okay. And he puts a credit card down, and of course it goes through.
Yeah.
And he gets in his car and drives to his little apartment, and he's got a stack of bills, and it's like, oh my God, I can't afford it. It was priceless, and it broke my heart, but it was priceless because there's so much of that going on around here, and young people see it, especially young people in those areas, because they're expecting that lifestyle to continue when they leave their parents, which is not going to. Mm-hmm. And it's a sickness, I think. It's just a sickness.
Yeah.
There's a term for that too. Like, as you start to make more money, you start to buy more expensive things, like lifestyle creep. And that's something like creating that image, I think, is a part of that lifestyle creep. And if you just, budget, stick where you're at, be like, this is what I'm going to do for the next X amount of years, and just stay on that path and avoid that lifestyle creep, that's really going to get you ahead. And
it's funny, I hadn't really thought about lifestyle creep. I like that. I'm going to use that. But, I don't know if you guys caught that earlier, but, I told you my wife and I are on a salary, and we haven't given ourselves a raise in, 7 years. I don't know. But it's funny. I bring that up not because I'm bragging about my frugality, but we've actually are able to save more money from, I know it's kind of a game we play. We've got our companies that are making money, but we kind of use the mindset and pretend that the only money coming in is our paychecks. And we're actually putting a little bit more away every month, or we have more to spend, however you look at it. But my checking account is getting bigger, slightly every month over the past 3 years. And we're doing more, we're traveling more, we're doing more things, but it's our bills are getting less. We had a couple of cars that were financed for a while there when we were coming out of the recession, and got rid of those. Now the cars we have are paid for. And so bills are even kind of going down a little bit. And, we can even afford to put our son into a private school that would cost a lot of people half of their yearly income. And I'm not saying that to brag by any stretch. I don't brag about anything.
Right.
Don't have to, don't want to. But that is because we are mindful of what we do, and we're careful with what we do. And granted, guys, we could probably go out and do a lot more, and we do. Every once in a while, we go crazy. We'll go to Europe for 2 weeks, and we don't go crazy there, but we enjoy ourselves.
Yeah.
Or go out to eat or whatever like that. We go out to eat a lot. But you don't have to have the lifestyle creep. I do that just because we don't need any more money to live on. I can have it if I want it. I just go to my bank account and take it out, but I don't. But it's a lesson only in that I never lived that way before. Every time before, when I'd make a little bit more money, I'd spend a little lifestyle creep. You make more money, you spend more money, and I love that lifestyle creep. That's good.
Killing it, Drew.
Yeah, I heard it from someone else.
I wrote that.
Just regurgitating information.
No, we all are. It's something we heard. We just don't know where. But if you can learn to live on what you're making now and have a good time, that means you don't necessarily have to spend more money as you make more money. So that's something to really be mindful of. Is not increasing this what do you call it? Creep? What is it? Lifestyle creep.
Lifestyle creep. Yep.
Don't let it happen, and you guys you'll make so much money. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So much money.
So transition maybe into books, kind of on the same topic though. Usually we talk to people about books on mindset or business, but maybe what are some books that newbie investors or people just getting started on the journey, which are most of the people that listen to this podcast, what are some books that can help delay gratification, to help, mitigate lifestyle creep, or books to just set the tone for maybe the rest of your life as an investor?
That book that I'm going to write.
Yeah.
Yeah, that book. You know what? I think Drew and I talked about this last time. I had a couple of books there, and I read books like right now I'm reading Blue Ocean, which is a really interesting book. But it's more of an advanced business type thing. I have to go back. You found that book that I told you about, right? Did you ever read that one?
Yeah, the buy and hold one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really old school,
Mhm.
really down to earth. I like that one because it's an easy read.
It's really cool to hear him like refer to stuff that's buzzwords now, like house hacking and Burr, and like all these buzzwords that we hear, but they didn't have terms with those definitions. And
Yeah,
to read about that and see him talk about that, I just thought that was cool.
the dude was old school, man. So
Mhm.
that I like that kind of stuff because we're inundated right now with so many books, and people get an idea and it's like, hey, I'm going to write it, and I'm really going to get it out there and make some money with it. And there's so many out there right now. Someone just sent me one yesterday. I am so sorry, guys.
No.
I spend most of my time working
Yeah.
on my business, and I read. I used to read about 3 or 4 hours a day, and now it's about 3 or 4 minutes. And this is up till about a year ago. I told you before, Rich Dad Poor Dad is what turned my mind around to investing. Even though the premise of the entire book now, I went back and read it a couple of years ago, and it was like, well, that's
Yeah. It's not very thorough. But the Millionaire Next Door that you brought up earlier, I mean, that's a great book for people to kind of set the tone and realize that people like you know, that have built substantial wealth, most of them aren't the ones driving a Lambo going back to the apartment with a stack of bills, right?
Yeah.
They're the everyday people that take their family for 2 weeks to Europe, right? They drive, you know, I'm sure you drive a nice car that, you know, that gets you from point A to point B, but it's not.
I drive a 2013 F-150.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the premise of the whole book.
Yeah.
You know, I think they had a whole section about most millionaires, at least when they did this survey. And I know his daughter redid the book in 2016. I haven't read it, but I heard it was good. But most people have a 2-year-old vehicle that they paid for in cash after the depreciation came off the lot. You know, they buy it at 2 years old or something like that. You know, and that's a great book to set the tone.
Yeah, the other one, another one, it's called The Latte Factor.
Yeah.
If you've read that,
I have not, but I've heard about it.
Okay, so that one, and again, any book you read, you're going to get little pieces out of it, little nuggets. Generally, there's a lot of fluff, and it's like when you watch a YouTube video, they usually give you the good stuff in the last minute or two, and most books are like that to me. I read it and I go, yeah. Ooh, that's good. And yeah. Ooh, that's good. So I'm going to push through this Blue Ocean book. And the premise of that one, and I'm not saying for anybody to go out and buy this right now, but the premise of it, this is good stuff. The premise of it is that there's red oceans and blue oceans. Blue oceans are clean. There's nothing there to hinder your growth. A red ocean is where there's a lot of sharks and a lot of blood in the water. So you look at 3 Band-Aid companies that are competing with each other with the same product. Those are basically sharks, and there's a lot of blood in the water. Everybody's competing for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got this new Band-Aid that comes out that actually closes the wound and sterilizes it, and it's got all the bactine and everything on it. It's an all-in-one Band-Aid that trumps all those other Band-Aids, and it's a Blue Ocean Band-Aid. That Blue Ocean Band-Aid has no competition. They've created their own market. So, and I'm just using Band-Aids. I have no idea why that came up, but anyway. But you guys hopefully understand the premise of the book, and it's books like that I really enjoy. It's not so much the content of the book, it's the way it makes my mind think. It's like, okay, so I wholesale houses, I flip houses, I sell houses, and I own houses. So how can I make my business different than everybody else's? How can I provide content like for my listeners that is different from everybody else? Mm-hmm. So that's something that, you know, as a business person, and now we're going down a rabbit hole here. That's something as a business person that's really important. So when I read a book, that's what I look for. I look for new ideas, and you're asking for what new investors should do. So I will circle back to that. Sorry about that. And I'm going to say, you know, a book like Rich Dad is a great book. because it teaches you the premise of, yeah, you shouldn't be working for somebody else. You should be working for yourself, i.e. invest and have a day job, though. And the latte factor teaches you a lot too, because, that latte adds up to X amount of dollars per year, which if you retire, I'm reading a book right now and I can't remember the name of it, but they extrapolate how much money you've got to put into your retirement account in order to pay for a latte every day or a cup of coffee every day. And he's taking each little thing. He's like, okay, now if you want to buy a coffee every day, you're going to have to invest $30,000 to give you enough return, blah, 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 or $8,000 you're going to have to invest. And that brings it home. Anything that flips your switch to change your habits and change the way you live is a great book, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
I agree, because
I don't have anything right now that comes to mind. Last time I thought about it when Drew asked, and I was going to do it this morning. I knew you were going to ask this. But next time when we talk, I'll have some books. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Mark, we really, really appreciate you coming on. I mean, you're genuinely one of, at least for me, my favorite person to listen to, because you're so genuine. You can tell you don't really have an agenda. You're doing it for the love of the game, helping people, and then plus the fact that you're in such a, high-end market, and you're not one of those guys flashing out your car and because a lot of the people that I see on Instagram from the coast, they're showing off their Benz and their new car and their Rolex and all this stuff, and that's how they bring followers in. Yeah. And where you're just like, no, this is a long game. Keep your day job, right? Keep reinvesting. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? And so we really, really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you too. I've enjoyed both of you. You're refreshing. A lot of the guys I talk to in my everyday life, aren't quite like that. And I appreciate what you guys are doing, what you guys are doing for everybody else too. Giving someone the hope that they can get started. It's all great. I can talk about I own booths and I own that, and that means nothing to anybody. That's, like you said, that's almost like a Lamborghini. That doesn't mean anything to me where I'm at right now with my $15 an hour job, and a baby, and
right.
That doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't help me.
Doesn't mean anything. So What you guys are doing is really important. I'm just kind of showing what can happen if you do it for a while, but you guys are living it and doing it, and you've got your day jobs, and I'm so impressed with both of you at the age you are. I just, anytime you guys want me, I'm here. I truly respect what you guys are doing. So
thanks, Mark. It was a great episode. I always love listening to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do ramble on though.
No, it's all good.
That's perfect.
It's all good.
Thanks.
All right. Well, you guys have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to rate and subscribe. New episodes released every Wednesday and Friday.